Hi, Julie Jones with SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week. And this week we're drawing inspiration from the words of Dr. King and taking a look at how they can help us improve our performance. Every year on this day, I'm reminded of a story, or a true story, an experience that I learned from Dr. Pat Hill, who I shared an office with in graduate school at Cleveland State University. And Pat and I were getting ready to teach our COM 101 public speaking class, and we were team teaching it that day for some reason. We were talking about the I Have a Dream speech. We talked about the greatness of Dr. King and the greatness of his ability to give a speech. What an amazing orator, to be able to get people to listen and follow his passion. But most importantly on that day, I remember her telling me of her own experience. When Pat was young, Pat was in her 40s at that time, early 40s, she would travel to visit family in the South, in Alabama, I believe it was. And when she went there to visit her grandparents or her aunts and uncles, she had to drink from a colored water fountain. The words are still heavy on me today. I could not believe that my friend, the beautiful, the bright, the kind, the incredibly just wonderful person that I knew, Dr. Patricia Hill, not Dr. Hill at that point yet, had to drink from a water fountain that said colored, or use facilities that said colored, and couldn't go and use a water fountain that I could drink out of, or the bathroom that I could use. What a bunch of crap. Well, right then and there, the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Movement came alive for me. Prior to that, I thought it was distant history. I had a great experience as a young person. I went to school in Akron with people of every color and creed and religion. But I never stopped and thought about the oppression that my friend, the person that I loved, had to endure. It seemed like history to me. It changed my perspective that day. It changed me that day. I was pissed. I was stunned, and I cried. I remember standing there crying, and it still, to this day, almost 30 years ago, still impacts me every time I think of it, and that's why I'm sharing it today, to think our history is closer than we think. And it's affected the people that we know and we love. And that's why we have to continue to fight for justice. And that's why we're going to use Dr. King's words today to make us think about how we can improve our performance. Before 1993, I looked at Martin Luther King Day in a certain way. I learned about it in books. I read about it in school. And I thought about it as a movement that I was not connected to. After 1992 or 1993, whatever year that was, I looked at it as a different person, an educated person, a more educated person, a more empathetic person. And today I look at it through the eyes of a mental performance coach. And I want to read a couple quotes. I'm going to start with this one. Not everybody can be famous, but everyone can be great, because greatness comes from service. And this reminds me of a way that we can defuse pressure. One of the best ways to not focus on our performance is to walk into practice, to walk into the game, to walk into whatever situation we're in and say, how can I help? As soon as we think about how we can help, we start to look for solutions instead of focusing on ourselves and all the problems that might happen, all the things that might come up, or all the worries that we have. Wouldn't it be awesome if our athletes walked into practice every day and said, hey, coach, how can I help the team today? Or even in their own minds, look around. How can I help my teammates? How can I make this situation better? What can my work today do to make our team the best that it can be? That's a great quote to share with your team and a great perspective to have. What a perspective shift. Quote number 2, or 2 and 3 here actually. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving. And secondly, if I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. This quote reminds me of our athletes that are not having their A game, or they're not playing the role they want, or maybe they're injured. We can always think about what we can do. We are constantly telling ourselves what we can't do, right? That's how our brain works. But there is always something that we can do. If we can't run, maybe we can walk to stay in shape. They say that walking a mile and running a mile is really almost the same as far as keeping your cardiovascular at a certain level. I don't know if it's exactly the same. I don't know if I buy that totally, but you get the point. If you can't throw, can you visualize throwing? If you can't shoot, can you work on your footwork? What can you do? If you can't walk, or if you can't run, then walk. If you can't throw, then see it, visualize it. There is always a way to continue to contribute and continue to move forward. It's a choice. We get to choose whether we look at all the things we can't do or we look for the things we can do. So if we can't run, then walk. But always move forward. And lastly, we are not makers of history. We are made by history. And what does this mean? We are made by our history. We're looking to see what can happen in the future. But all the things that we've experienced in the past make a difference on how we're going to act in the future. How we look at our past makes a difference on how we're going to perform. If we screwed up the last time and we look at it that way, then we're probably going to screw up the next time too. So our perspective on what's happened to us makes a difference on what's going to happen next. We always get to choose our reaction. Things happen, we react. And then something else happens. It's that reaction that changes what happens next. So, if we allow our history to taint us, our future will be tainted as well. If we can look at our history and re-script it and play it out the way we want the next thing to happen, then we're one step ahead. We can go back and relive what's been great. I am certain that Dr. King used history to propel him forward. I am certain that Dr. King thought about quitting and lost his confidence, and all these other things happened when he was thinking about walking or running, when he was thinking about all the things that were ahead of him. How we look at what happened to us affects the way we look at the future. So can we relive the great things and plan for more? Because history has a tendency to repeat itself. Can we look at the things that we didn't like and re-script them and then realize that we get to change the future? All of these things make a difference on what we are doing today. So can we relive the great, re-script the bad, and work hard and perform in the present? The last thing I'll leave you with is what Dr. King said about injustice. And injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We owe a great gratitude of debt to he and all of those who have fought for injustice for all of us. And I hope that we'll think about that today as we head into the next week. So whatever quotes you have for Dr. King today, think about how they tie back to our performance. There are some great ones. And I hope you enjoy this day reflecting on the work that he did and the work that we still have to do. Have a great week.